Welcome to Unleash the Awesome with Dave Gambrill. All of us have unique skills, talents, and abilities that aren't being used to their full potential. Our mission is to share the people, tools, apps, and other resources that will help you unleash your awesome on the world.
Yo, what's up? It's Dave. Welcome to another episode of Unleash the Awesome. Today, let's talk about why work and life balance doesn't work and what to do instead. Yeah, work-life balance. It's kind of a myth. I guess for some people, maybe they can pull it off. But I think the more people I talk to and the more people that I've interacted with in corporate America, but also in the entrepreneurial world, people who have their own businesses, solopreneurs, small teams, things like that, I've just found that balance, right? The term balance, if you think about it, when I think about a scale. I think about something on one side and something on the other, meaning if you want to get balance, something on one side has to give in order for the other side to change height so that it can go back to balance. And the reality is, if you want to do big things in the world, you're not going to have balance very often, if ever. There's always going to be something a little out of kilter. It's just the nature of the beast. You can't, with all the things going on, all the plates that you might be spinning, no matter how good you might be at deleting stuff altogether, which I talked about in the last episode of this podcast a little bit, right? Eliminating some stuff that's not necessary to be doing. No matter how good you get at that, there's just some stuff that doesn't stay in check. It doesn't stay balanced. Because if you think about work-life balance, right? You have work, but then your life has its own things inside of it. There's multiple pieces of your life. There's relationships and your finances and your health and fitness and your hobbies and all that other stuff, right? So again, it's not just on a flat line of work and then life. You got all these things going on in your life. And so if you've been struggling with work-life balance, I would encourage you to think about something called work-life integration. And there's a great book by Stewart, Friedman. It's called Total Leadership. Sounds like a leadership book, right? But if you read it, one of the things he talks about in there is four-way wins. I think that's what he calls it. I haven't read it in years, but I've applied the principles ever since I read it like 10 years ago. Four-way wins. And the basic concept was, how do you find things in your life that overlap? So if you're going to do something, can you find a way for it to overlap? I'll give you an example. In my situation, as you think about the wheel of life, that's something I talked about in the last episode too. The wheel of life means you're looking at all these different facets of your life. Like I mentioned before, fitness and hobbies and relationships and family and finances and whatever else. So as my kids were growing up, one of them played lacrosse. And when he was little, the leagues and stuff had issues finding good referees, good officials. And for a time, I was coaching, volunteering to coach, and I coached because you always need good coaches to know the game. But for the most part, parents don't understand the game of lacrosse. It's not like they could just go coach soccer, which is much easier for most people to understand. And so I was coaching for a while, but then I realized we needed more officials. And I read the book right about this time. And what they were saying in the book was like, how can you find things that overlap? And I realized that I could actually watch my kids' games, because you can referee your kids' games in youth sports. It's not so, it wasn't so fraught with all these crazy parents at that time. Maybe it is now, I don't know, but you could ref your own kid's game in these youth leagues, right? We're talking about like elementary school, maybe middle school. And so I was like, wait a second, I know the game, I know the sport, I played, I've coached, I know what's going on. They need officials. If I become an official, I can probably officiate as a team with somebody else my kids' games. And even if I couldn't, I could still be on site and ref all the other games and then just watch, not ref for one game and watch that one game. And maybe one of my partners or something would take his game solo, because you could very easily do a third or fourth or fifth grade game like by yourself as an official. But anyway, that was something that overlapped on my wheel of life or integrated with multiple things, right? Spending time with my family and my kids, getting to see them play lacrosse. It was good for fitness because I was running up and down the field. It was good for finances because I was getting paid to do it. I was out in the sun enjoying myself. And for some other things in my life, which I've talked about in other episodes, it gave me some income that I could then reinvest into my side hustle or invest in things to offset my time, to get more leverage with my time. So I could go officiate a lacrosse game and make $50, and I could take that $50 and pay somebody to mow my lawn, so I didn't have to spend 2 hours doing that. So essentially, on that one trade-off there, it would take about 2 hours for me to mow my lawn if I had to do it by myself. So I could take $50 and basically buy an hour of my time back, because it would take an hour to ref the game. I get $50, and it would take me 2 hours to mow my lawn, and I just basically give that $50 to the landscape guy. So I got 1 hour of my time back net on that whole thing. Plus, I got all that stuff I mentioned before. I got to spend time with my kids. I got to be out in the sun and exercising and all that stuff. It was a hobby. I enjoy the sport. I got to see other parents. I got to teach other parents and coaches, frankly, about the game and the rules of the game and what they should be teaching and encouraging the kids to do, all of that stuff. So that was a very, very tightly integrated thing, right? A lot of things overlapped there. So I wasn't giving up a lot to do that. And it was integrated. Now, there were times when maybe I was at my kids' games or at a tournament and I was not reffing, and some of my other kids played soccer, and maybe I was at their games. And, if you've ever watched youth soccer or rec soccer or like middle school soccer, it's not super competitive. There's not always a lot of action going on. So it's not hard for you, if you wanted to go stand kind of by yourself, not with all the other parents, and be listening to a podcast in one earbud, or maybe be on a Zoom call with work or something like that, right? So you could still be watching the game, you could still be participating. And when you let everybody know, when you're transparent about it, we're not trying to hide the fact you're at your kid's game, right? You're like, yeah, I'm here, I'm dialed in on the call or whatever. It just makes everything better. So instead of having like this clear delineation of either I'm at work or I'm at home, but there's nothing in between, in this case, there's some integration, there's some overlap. Now, clearly, you need to make sure you have boundaries, all right? I'm not trying to go out on date night with my wife and take a Zoom call, all right? If it's a championship game, or the games are more heated, or it's a sport where like wrestling or baseball, when a kid could be up to bat, or softball or something, I probably would be more involved with watching without trying to be on a call or something like that, right? So clearly there is a place where I draw the line. And even with officiating my kids' games, it got to the point where when he got in really competitive, even good middle school stuff, I'm like, you know what? It doesn't make sense for me to ref his games. I shouldn't be reffing his games. Let's let somebody else do that. But there were other parents and dads and even moms that were officials that we just figured out ways when we were at these tournaments that we could ref, like we would just make sure that we got off that game, because he would ref a lot of games over the course of a tournament weekend, and we would just work it out. So like, hey, can I take this game off so I could watch my kid? And so I'd ref 3 or 4 games and take a game off and watch him play, and then be back to reffing. And he knew where I was, and the other parents were over there, making sure that he was in good shape when he was not playing and he was under the tent hydrating and eating or whatever he should be doing, right? So those are like ways to integrate stuff. And as you're building a side hustle, I think that's something you really have to think about, right? Because you're working a full-time job, you have your family, and then you're like, oh my God, Dave, when am I going to have time to do my side hustle? Well, you have to find ways to integrate into what you're already doing. There's not going to be balance. You have to figure out ways to integrate. So I'll give you an example. I'm getting ready to go on a short vacation here with some of my extended family, and it's going to be at the beach. And I have already thought, because I've done this before, right? But then maybe this will give you some ideas. I've already been thinking about, what can I do on this vacation for my business? Now, I'm still going to have a good time. I'm not going to be doing getting on calls and stuff while I'm there. But as you're creating businesses and side hustles and you want to have a presence online and social media and things like that, you need good photos. And you could go buy stock photos, or you could take your own photos. You need videos. You could go get stock videos and buy stock videos and B-roll and things like that, or you could shoot your own B-roll. So what I've been thinking about is, do I want to bring my little drone or not? I have a little Mavic Pro drone. And at first I was like, I want to pack light. And then I was like, no, definitely bring it. I was like, do I want to bring a selfie stick? Am I ever going to use that? And I was like, yes, bring it. It'll fit in your bag. It's fine. Because there will be times when I get up in the morning to watch the sunrise, or maybe when I just walk over to the boardwalk and it's super busy, that I can shoot some really awesome B-roll with my drones, with my little Gorillapod tripod, whatever, just with my phone. I'm not even going to need a special camera or anything. Now, if you want to have special cameras and all that stuff, you can, right? But for just a handful of things I can throw in my bag, Gorillapod, which is an awesome little tripod that can stick on all kinds of stuff, right? There will be plenty of opportunities for me to shoot some B-roll or to shoot some pictures that would be great for photo quotes and memes and things like that, right? So that's a very simple, non-invasive way for you to integrate things into your life, right? Into just what's going on in your life. Today, if you follow me on in my group, Digital Marketing Mentorship, I talked about, and I think I did this in a couple other places. I did it on Instagram. I'll put the link in the show notes for you to Instagram so you could see it. Today I had an experience at GNC, right? The General Nutrition Center. I haven't been in that store in years, probably 3 or 4 years. I went in there today. I had an experience. It was really great. I asked the girl that was working there, Claudia is her name, she was really awesome, about some stuff. She was very knowledgeable and she made some recommendations. And then at the register, she asked me if I wanted to sign up for their loyalty program, which essentially she got my email list. If you know me at all, you know I'm really big on building your freaking email list. So right away, she got my email and I'm like, okay, sure. They're smart. Look, they're getting my email address. And then she said, oh, one of the things was like a multivitamin. And she said, oh, did you know we have this program where you can subscribe and save up to, I forget how much percent, but it was substantial. You could save X percent and we will automatically, with free shipping, send this to your house on whatever, time frame you needed it. So if it was like a 30-day supply, we'll send it to your house like every 25 days or something so you never run out. She's like, do you want to subscribe? And I'm like, no, I'm just trying these things. Let me make sure I can tolerate them and they work or whatever, but thank you. And so I got out in the car and I took a picture of the front of the store and I wrote this post. And again, I'll put it in the show notes so you can see it, where I talked about this whole experience. And I said, listen, y'all, if they can do this, and if building an email list and creating recurring revenue through a subscription program or a membership is something that works for a company like this, maybe it'll work for a company like yours. Build your email list and figure out ways to set up recurring revenue. If you need help, come join me in my group or whatever, right? So I did that social post. Again, this took me 3 minutes, I think, all told, sitting in the car, and maybe a total of 5 minutes because I cross-posted it to a couple different platforms. And then I drove off. So in that time, right, I was living my life. So I wasn't, quote, working. And I could have said like, well, today it's Sunday. I'm just going to live my life. I'm not doing any work. But that was a prime opportunity. I wasn't in a hurry to go anywhere. Nobody was waiting on me. And I was like, this is a great story to tell to my audience, right? This follows my content creation framework called Who's the Who, So What? I think I did a whole episode on that. If I did, I'll put it in the show notes for you. But it's like just documenting things that happen in your everyday life. And so I did that and I put it out there. It was another form of work-life integration that I literally did today, probably 4 or 5 hours ago when I'm recording this podcast. By the time you see it, it will be a few days, maybe a week or so. But did it super fast. Later on in the day, I was kind of relaxing and watching Instagram, and I saw a buddy of mine, Luke Rangel. I'll put his Instagram link in the bio or in the show notes for you. And see, notice how I said Instagram and then link in bio just came out automatically. He had a post on Instagram talking about, he's a fitness guy and he's super shredded, cut. He helps people lose weight and get fit. And he was talking about this idea of donuts don't make you fat. Essentially, too many donuts make you fat, and that you can be smart about, if you want to occasionally have some things like a donut, you can. You just have to be smart about the trade-off you make. And in this case, he was talking about carbs and things like that. And I saw his post, and then I saw some hater show up in the comments. And then I just screenshotted that and talked about how to handle haters. And again, I posted that in my Digital Marketing Mentorship Facebook group about a really good example of how to do this. And here it is. And I did an episode of this podcast called Haters Are Required. I'll put that in the show notes for you as well. And I was explaining to people, like, as you get out there, as you create a podcast, as you are doing work-life integration like I'm talking about and documenting your life through social media and things like that, haters are going to come. How do you handle them? And so I made another post. So I made 2 posts today that just happened to come across my vision or my awareness, I guess, through me living my life and then doing some documentation of it. Now, I wasn't doing this thing about, let me show you my breakfast or let me show you my dinner, which occasionally you can do that because people want to know. Sometimes people want to know what your morning routine is or what you put in your smoothie or whatever. But like, I don't make a habit of taking a picture of everything I eat every day and making an Instagram post about it, right? But occasionally it does make sense for my audience. And so for you, if you're trying to figure out what to post on social media and work-life balance and all this other stuff, like that would be a great way for work-life integration, side hustle integration, work, side hustle, life integration, whatever you want to call it, where you're like, oh, let me just post this thing out there. It took 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes. It might take you 10 minutes the first time you do it. But when you get in the habit of doing these things, when I go on vacation next week and I'm just out doing stuff, like it's going to be in the back of my mind because I've done this enough where I'm like, oh, here's a good opportunity to take some pictures. Here's a great picture of the sunrise on the beach. Here's a great picture of the beach early in the morning with nobody on it. And I can take a picture and it'd be great for a photo quote. Let me put the drone up in the sky and take a picture of these people that are out surfing because I can get some great drone shots there. Whatever. All right. Integration. Some people will say, I'm going on vacation. I'm going totally unplugged. Okay, there's definitely a time for that. I do it too occasionally. I'll probably do it for a period of time during this vacation. But wait, what a great opportunity for me to go and be like, oh, I can capture some of this extra footage and things like that. And I'm sure I'll have experiences that happen to me on my vacation that will be great for social media, be great for a post, it'd be great for blog posts, maybe a chapter of a book or whatever. And maybe I won't write a chapter of the book there, or maybe I'll save the post for later, but I'll certainly take a picture if it makes sense and take some notes in my phone. So then later, if I want to post something about it, I can, right? So it won't be totally fresh in my mind, but I can look back at the notes that I took and it will help me recall that kind of stuff, right? Those are just ways to integrate what you're doing. If you're working a job where you're, working blue collar stuff all day and you can't really kind of get away, is there a way within whatever the rules are for your workplace or whatever you're doing for you to listen to a podcast or listen to an audio book? All right, work-life integration. How can you be thinking about other stuff? And if you can't do that, okay, then fine. Do it on the car ride home. Listen to an Audible audiobook on the way home in the car instead of listening to whatever else you would usually listen to. And again, you don't have to do this all the time. Yeah, I was rocking out to music as I was running my errands and going to the grocery store and some of the stuff I was doing today. I even made a new playlist in Spotify that was music. And I had it cranked up loud and it was great. I was rocking out. It's a beautiful day here today. Windows down, driving around. Awesome. No, I wasn't listening to a podcast or an audiobook. I don't do it 100% of the time, right? Everything in moderation, including moderation. But I often hear from people the excuse of, I don't have time. When am I supposed to do that? I'm at work or I'm at home. Like, when am I supposed to do this? It's because you're thinking in this linear fashion of, in order for this to happen, something else has to not happen. In order for me to get here, I have to give there, or whatever the case may be, right? You're thinking about balance. You're thinking about, I have to take one piece here to add one piece over there. And that, it just doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way. You have to find ways to integrate what it is you're trying to do. And I think if you think about this book from Stewart Friedman, the Total Leadership, and read it, and then think about this, it's just a new way, it's a new paradigm. It's a little bit of a shift to go, okay, let me figure out how to do this. And again, clearly, you got to make sure you put boundaries in place, right? There's exceptions to all of this integration stuff, right? I turn off my phone when I go out to eat to dinner with my wife. Now, again, occasionally, there might be a situation where something comes up, or there might be a good picture I could take, or whatever. I will ask her permission. Hey, can I take this picture, or whatever? And she knows what I do, and she's like, yeah, if it'll help, whatever, right? But 95% of the time, off in my pocket, the phone is not even on. Or if it's on, I have it set to do not disturb, so only like my immediate family could get through to me if they needed to, my kids or whatever. So yes, you need to make sure you establish boundaries. You can't let it bleed over so much that you're live streaming every meal with your family, unless that's your YouTube channel. There are some people, I've seen YouTube channels where like it's almost like live streaming their entire life. There's a place for that. There are niches where that makes a lot of sense. For me, that doesn't make sense, and I wouldn't want to do that. So there are boundaries. I say, okay, yeah, I'm going to document some of this. I'm going to put some of this out there, but you often don't see me talking about like specifically where I live and taking pictures of my house and taking pictures of my kids without their permission and all that jazz, right? There's limits to all of it. But as much as it makes sense, I try to integrate as much of my business in my life as possible. And listen, I'm not a tax professional, legal professional. Don't take advice from me on this specifically, but like when you do some of this stuff really well, there are even ways where there are probably benefits for taxes and things like that. So like you go on a business trip and you do some business stuff, and then there might be an opportunity to take advantage of some of those things or the tax code or whatever, while also having some fun while you're there. Again, just throwing that out there. Do your own research and due diligence on that. Don't take my advice specifically. But integration and boundaries are the key, right? Instead of thinking about work-life balance, I would encourage you today to think about work-life integration with appropriate boundaries. And I know when you switch over to that mindset of work-life integration with appropriate boundaries, it will most definitely help you unleash your awesome on the world. See you.
Thanks for listening to Unleash the Awesome. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please share us on your favorite social media platforms using #UnleashAwesome.